Hello, network group. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're so excited to be here to talk to you about learning key insights to building a revenue team. I am joined here with some experts. First off, I am Cynthia Schreiner. I'm the community guard. I am joined with John Fry, a channel account manager here at Liongard, and Adam Slutskin, Chief Revenue Officer at Liongard. Between the three of us, we have decades of experience in the channel, both on the MSP side and on the vendor side with various vendors. So you're definitely in for a treat today, especially John and Adam, just their vast knowledge on how to build the right revenue team for your MSP. The other thing I would encourage you to do is to not be shy. If you have a question, don't wait till the end. Put it in there, because my favorite thing to do is to figure out a way to interrupt Adam. So please help me do that by putting your questions out there as soon as you have them. So without further ado, I will hand it over to Adam to talk about building your dream revenue team.
Hey, everybody. Glad to be here. It's a sunny day out of Florida, which is where John and I are. We're in Tampa. Side note, John just recently joined the Liongard team. And interesting enough, John and I go back to Computer Associates, CA days. For anybody that's ever used CA products, we deeply apologize. Just kidding. But the way John and I got to know each other was his mouse was on the same frequency as mine, and my cursor and screen were doing all this weird stuff. And I looked over and I could see this guy was moving his cursor around, and that's when things were happening to mine. So that's how John and I got to know each other literally 17 years ago. So John, glad to have you back at Liongard. And I think the good news is, combined, when you just do that quick math, combined, John and I have been in sales for really over 40 years together, and across enterprise and mid-market, but more importantly, for the last 14, 15 years in the MSP space. Why is this information going to be relevant? You're like, hey, Adam, right, here's how it usually starts off. I get it, you've done it on the vendor side, but we're small. Well, every organization that I've worked with the exception of CA, guess what? It starts with one. And at Liongard, when I started with them 2.5 years ago, we had one sales rep and 10 customers. That was it. So probably all of you were much, much bigger than we were 2.5 years ago. So I want to focus on the things that'll help you. I've gotten a chance to work directly with MSPs over the years to help them. A lot of them are using a lot of the things that I'm going to show you, and sample comp plan. It's being used by many, many MSPs of all sizes. And so we'll see if that can help you a bit. John, any quick entry words before we jump in?
Yeah, it's just great to be part of the team. And I'd like to take a moment to talk a little bit about, the way you've impacted my life, Adam. It's been quite substantial, and to be a part of this journey here is quite tremendous. So thank you for everything.
Well, thank you. And let's see if we can help a bunch of the people that are with us and see if we can give them some key insights to how we build a revenue team and some of the high points. By the way, I do want to point something out. I am 100% available and indebted to the MSP ecosystem. Anybody that wants to follow up with me directly and block some time, there's nothing I enjoy doing more than helping others understand the things that I've learned, and helping you to start to generate the recurring kind of revenue and predictable revenue that you want. Okay, here we go. Whoop. Sorry. There we go. Okay. So first, we want to talk a little bit about some of the roles. Now, I want to break this down. When, you've probably heard these terms, hunter, farmer. Hunter, they want to go, at least if not slay the dragon, profoundly hurt him. And then, of course, the farmer, what they really want to do is they want to nurture, right, that dragon. I used to say slay the dragon. People would call me out and say, well, how can you nurture something that you've slayed? Good point. And so now I say severely hurt them. But really that hunter mentality, which I've done both of these roles, and I definitely gravitate more toward the hunter side. And I always enjoyed the thrill of engaging into the unknown and engaging with prospects, and hopefully, educating them to the point where, they would give my product that I was representing a chance. So these are just some of the things that you can look at when you look for a hunter, right? They're very passionate. Sometimes they'll wear the emotion on the sleeve, highly competitive. And I'm just thinking about all the reps over the years, the hundreds of them that, you know, you're a friendly environment, but they always wanted to win and they always knew where they stood compared to the rest of the pack. They like being creative. If you take the creativity away from a hunter, they start to get a little discombobulated. They will challenge the status quo. And what that means is they're not shy and they're going to say why. They're going to ask why a lot, or they're going to offer ideas on how we should do this. If they're not challenging the status quo, you probably don't have a top rep. I know that comes with challenges, but trust me, I embrace it. I want it as a leader who has to manage these unique personalities. And I want people that want to be in the game. They're not always the best at detail. You know, you have to remind them, and that's where good sales cadence and management, whether you're a army of one and that you are owner-led sales, or if you only have one or a few sales reps, doesn't matter. Have a good cadence of review. If you're army of one, make sure you're blocking that time to have that methodical review of when you're putting on your sales hat and looking at your pipeline, looking at your prospects, managing what are your outstanding items and to-dos to follow up with those people, right?
Hey, Adam, quick
Go
question.
ahead.
Okay,
Yeah.
so maybe you're trying to transition from owner-led sales to actually having a sales team of one. Should you, if you as the owner sort of see yourself maybe more as a farmer, should you be getting a hunter, or should you have, if you're a hunter, should you get another hunter? How would you say that? Do you definitely need both for a successful sales organization?
Ultimately, you're going to want to get there because you can't do both, right? And so we're going to talk about that. Normally what I see where there's some failure, consistent failure in the ecosystem is when you try to get a hybrid. Hybrids don't work anywhere because you can see they have different personalities. They think and are wired differently. And it really comes down to the owner. I've seen it and worked with owners that were hiring their first quote unquote rep go both ways, where the owner said, hey, you know what? I want to continue to knock them down. I love the hunter side. I want somebody that's going to be able to manage them post-sale so that you can look on how we're going to grow them. And then I've seen it go the other way where it's like, I can manage them for now. I need someone that can go and really keep that methodical cadence to go and get a lot of new business, which we are going to talk about. So it really depends on the owner, how the owner is wired. But if you don't know and you have to pick, you got nobody to manage if you don't get clients. So you're going to start with new sales. Okay?
Absolutely. Okay, Adam, what is John? Is John a hunter or a farmer?
You know, I've seen John do both in my experience. So it's not doing the same at the same time, but I've seen John do both. And you know what? What's really interesting is over time, you can find a path and you can be great at one and then cross over to the other. Now, when I usually see that, it's not usually farmer going to hunter. It's farmer or hunter going to farmer, where they really want to get into more maintenance of the relationship and continuing to expand and take care of the well-being of the client or the customer.
Yeah, very well framed up, Adam. It certainly came in to the role back in the day at ConnectWise in the hunter capacity. But as we started to venture into other ecosystems that, you know, wanted to maintain the relationships and kind of build, you know, the cadence we had with those various platforms. So it was a transition for me, but ultimately I loved it. But I will say my DNA is definitely hunter.
And by the way, I apologize. There is a little bit of a typo on the farmer. It looks like when the slides got cut over. They will not challenge the status quo. Usually with farmers, if you go down to the fourth bullet, they're very good listeners. They're very, very caring and customer focused. But when it comes to challenging status quo, you don't see that on the farmer side. You know, you're going to see more nurturing, more alignment with your internal teams, your onboarding teams, your dev teams, because they're going to be working with them a lot. They actually are very good at detail, you know, versus a hunter that's not. I won't take away from crave the win, but it's different. I would say they really crave the success of your client. Like the win is really having a happy client,
And the
rather
overall
than with the
experience.
hunter, it's the crave of that initial win.
Hey, Adam, we do actually have a question here.
Yeah, good.
So just talking about how scary it is for MSPs that are normally small to take on and manage a hunter. So what are your insights on how to manage that hunter once you've found it?
Embrace it. The people that fail are the ones that hire somebody. First of all, don't get sold on the book of business, the Rolodex. First of all, who has a Rolodex anymore? You know, that went away a while ago.
I think it's a list of contacts now in your phone.
I think so. But don't worry about that as much as, you know, look, you want someone that is an experienced salesperson and that understands the sales process. And we're going to talk a little bit about the differences and what a sales process looks like and some of the detail behind that. But, you know, when you manage them, please, I physically have seen this visiting MSPs on location. I'll go in and they're really excited because they've hired their first salesperson.
Mm-hmm.
And I will tell you one in particular, I won't give the name of the company here in Florida. And I walked in and literally sitting in a corner, facing the corner, no windows, is their salesperson. And as I was talking to the owner was like, I don't know what that person does. I don't know what that person's working on. And therein lies the responsibility of the owner. And if you remember what I talked about, the best ones that I've worked with that start with 0 and then maybe just add a rep, one sales rep, and then an account manager. I've worked with some now that have 6 or 7 sales reps. And I remember when they transferred from owner-led. And it's that methodical cadence we talked about. We're going to talk about this in a couple slides. System of record, visibility. Doesn't matter what your system of record is. Have your reports and your dashboard set up. Salesforce, ConnectWise, Autotask, Kaseya BMS, Synchro, Computicate, right? I think there's a lot more Computicate now in Europe. System of record, data, weekly reviews, review the pipeline, review your opportunities, review your wins, review your won losses. Don't be afraid to get into data. You know all the data on the technology. It's just data of a different sort. That's all it is. And if you embrace the data is going to help make you a great sales leader. Let me jump to the next slide. Trying to accomplish, right? I, like many of you probably, served in the military I served for a long time, over 20 years. It was the best job I ever had at being very poor and not making any money, right? And I couldn't be more blessed to have served. But we want to win here, and it is about growth, and it is about driving our revenue growth. And so here we want to make money. And the way we do that is we need to win, and we need to win as much as possible without, here's the one asterisk, blowing up our internal processes and systems. So for example, the question then becomes, if I could help any one of you build a sales organization where you were winning, and these are made up numbers, 12 deals a month or 12 deals a quarter, do you have the internal processes to support the onboarding of them, right? Now, here's what I usually find the answer is, hey, Adam, if you can help me win 12 deals a month or 12 deals a quarter, I will ensure that I expand my onboarding capabilities. By the way, I want to let you know it's the exact same on the vendor side. Remember when I told you we started with 1, just basically not that long ago, 10 at Liongard when I jumped on about 2.5 years ago. Well, we started to bring on a lot of partners, sometimes 50 to 110 new partners a month. Well, we had to expand our own internal onboarding systems. So just make sure you understand that. Let's get into the other stuff. All right. Where do we begin? So what are you trying to accomplish? And it really is important you think through that. Are you looking to add new clients? Are you looking to expand your revenue with your existing clients? By the way, I would challenge both of those should be part of your thought process. But think a little bit about your targets, right? Do you want to bring on 1 new client a month? Do you want to bring on 3? Someone that I've been working with in Pennsylvania for a few years now, just had a great breakout January and brought on 6. So how cool is that? It was a journey that we've worked through to build up to this point, but 6 new clients, and all of a sudden, guess what? You know, he's having to do that stuff we talked about, expand his ability to onboard all these new clients. All right, the next one. Do you know who you're going to want your sales team to call? You got to have a plan. Like I said, you hire somebody, you stick them in the corner, and you just think things are going to magically happen, you will fail. Do you have a system of record? And to me, it doesn't matter if you're using one of those systems I mentioned, or if you're even a little bit smaller and you're doing it in a spreadsheet. It's your system of record. Where are we maintaining the people that we want to call on, that we want to market to, that we want to get engaged with? If you focus on a specific vertical, have that vertical identified? Do you understand the geography that you support? And we're going to break this down a little bit more, but I want to give you some things on why it's so important to have a system of record, or else you want that person to sit there and then just call anybody, because that also is probably going to be, you may get lucky and find onesie twosie, but without that plan that really ties to your system of record, it's going to be hard to be successful. And that kind of just goes to that 4th point, which is, do you have that contact data loaded? You know, you got to have that data in the system of record. Now, I'll put John on the spot a little bit. You know, John, think back to your days as a rep, right? How important was that for you to have that system of record with the data there that you could manage and attack methodically?
I mean, you had to have it, and you had to put the data into the system, which isn't always an easy thing to do. It's, you know, CRM hygiene among salespeople is relatively weak overall. However, the best of the best are typically putting really good information into the system. They're putting their follow-ups. They can tell the complete sales pipeline journey just by what they put into the system. So if my manager wanted to understand what was going on, he didn't even need to talk to me. He could look at my opportunity list. He could look at my next steps. He could look at my percentage to close, et cetera, and it told the story right there. And we had weeklies, and we definitely touched base upon deals, but at the end of the day, that was very important for me. And I saw my peers that were really exceeding their numbers doing the same things.
Quick question.
Yeah, go ahead.
System of record. Are we talking about a CRM, a spreadsheet, any or all of the above? Or is it
all
just
of the above.
Spreadsheets. Do not do spreadsheets.
Okay. But here's the thing on that. If you're a very, very small company, because I've worked with literally, you've just left, you maybe were an engineer at another MSP, you've left, you've started your MSP, you're at the beginning, you haven't acquired a PSA yet, or it could be any of them, guys. It could be a PSA, it could be a CRM, it could be Salesforce, it could be HubSpot, it could be NetSuite, you know, it could be anything. And so the main thing is that you have a system of record. Now, is a spreadsheet going to get you where you need to be? No, you know that. So ultimately, you are going to acquire one of those, and all of them scale to the very small where it's a monthly charge. You know, we're agnostic. We integrate with all of them. All of them are very good at what they do. They have nuances that are different. The main thing is you have a place to manage your business.
Yep.
All right, let's jump to the next slide. All right. Now, I put this in because it's important. This is a whole nother breakout. You've got to understand your marketing activities before you can even start to have that salesperson begin to do their thing. So think about that. You've got to have a database of prospects or who you're going to call. How are you going to market or communicate against them? Email, right? Or call, right? Or as far as, you know, regarding digital marketing, which that's a whole nother breakout that I want to do with all of you. But when you start to think about it, let's take that most basic thing. We need a database of prospects, right? Without it, how are you going to begin? And then I put in there as a bullet, know your target market. Example, are you an MSP that only geographically covers a certain radius? Do you know, is it by mileage? Is it by a city? You know, whatever it is it by what they do? Do you only focus on financial companies or doctor's offices? This is important that you understand that, so that ultimately we're going to talk later about value proposition, but you need to build your database. So let's say, for example, I target a region and it's within 60 miles. You want to acquire and build your database of all of those potential companies that fit into, your profile. Now, how do you do it? There is a multitude of resources online that will provide data on companies, and by geography or type. If you just go and you go to to the internet, you're going to find those different list brokers that will allow you to begin to do it. Of course, you've got Chamber of Commerce's, local government, all of those things that want and to support those companies and to provide data for them. But it really is important that you put some thought into that, because if you just kind of, winging it, again, you're not building a methodical sales process. You won't be data driven, and sales will not, magically happen. It has to be thought through. I gave you a couple of acronyms too, right? So we need to create as many MQLs as possible. Now, we can have salespeople that absolutely pick up the phone and do cold calling against the name in the database. You've acquired that name of the law firm, ABC Law Firm. We can go ahead and try to engage them proactively. But by doing all the different marketing techniques that you can to nurture a prospect, right? Email, providing content. It could, again, those digital marketing activities we talked about, keyword search, PPC, all of those different things. Because when someone goes out there and looks for IT services or for a managed service provider, are you showing up when they do those searches? So anything you can do to create some initial touch, those marketing qualified leads are where we want the salespeople to spend the most time, because that's going to provide you the best chance to move them forward to a deal close. Cold calling is not dead. Do not believe it. It's effective. It still works. You have to have the right process. We'll talk a little bit about that later. But, again, it's that mixture. So we want salespeople to call on MQLs and qualify them into opportunities or FTAs. Currently at Liongard, we refer to it as an FTA. In essence, they're the same. They've met the criteria. So if you imagine it as a conveyor belt, here comes my marketing's over here and I'm creating some MQLs. Here it's coming down my conveyor belt. Okay, now I'm going to have a salesperson call them, or we could put a person in front of it that's a filter, which is a very low cost role, usually called a business development rep. You can hire them for the equivalent of 50,000 USD. And what they do is they qualify all day long. And the only thing that gets through is the stuff that really is worthy of a salesperson calling on. Now, if that BDR is not in place, no problem. Salesperson is just going to qualify them. And then in the system of record say, hey, this is an opportunity or an FTA, because they've set up that first-time appointment. By the way, first-time appointments do not need to be on site, especially after what we've all gone through over the last, year and a half now. There's more and more openness of virtual, and I've been trying to coach MSPs on this for a while. I know how, it always seemed like, no, I've got to go meet them in person. I think we've all seen what you can do in the virtual world. Not saying that you're not ultimately going to go on site and meet them, but think about that early part of the journey when you're working through a lot of opportunities to get to that deal. Think about how much more you can scale when you're doing those, as much of the process initially virtually. By the way, there's so many automation tools out there now that allow you to go out and find and identify their internal environment. Liongard is one of them. And so we are leveraging like a Liongard, and there's other tools out there that there's just so many vendors that are popping up that allow you to do more virtually. And so why go out there? Think about it. If you're running around town, maybe I can get a couple meetings a day. If I'm working virtually and I can do those initial meetings virtually, on the vendor side, you can get sometimes 7 a day. Think about what that would do and impact your ability to win. anyway, I've been on that journey for a while. And I think what's happened over the last year and a half, I am seeing a lot of MSPs worldwide that are doing this. So if you're not, think about it. Some clients may not want your prospects want you to come on site anyway. So, doing it virtually is going to give you more opportunity to meet with people that might not want to meet with you right now.
Hey, Adam, let me add one thing about BDRs and why I love BDRs, amongst other things.
Business development reps.
Business development reps.
Yeah.
So once you get that system in place, which is not easy to do, but let's assume you get it in place, that becomes the farm system for your future closers, right? And they generally are looking to take that next step and take their BDR skills to another level, fill the pipeline in order to earn the opportunity to come into that closing role. So just another thing to think about if you're looking to implement a BDR type.
And I am seeing more MSPs do this. And so it's generally can be a more junior role. It could be because they're just coming out of college. It's their first job. They have a business degree. They're interested in sales. And so it's very heavy activity. And so they might make 60, 70 outbound calls a day. And their whole focus is working your database and identifying people that are interested. It's just a funnel, right? They're the funnel. And they're just moving it down into the funnel. And they're a filter that only allows the good stuff to get to your closer. By the way, it's worth noting some owner-led MSPs who the owner likes closing. A lot of times what they really want to hire as their first sales hire is a BDR. It's less expensive. And what they're doing is just setting those appointments and creating those opportunities for the owner. And that can save you a little money initially. Now, why I like it when you hire it directly, I know there's vendors out there and I work with them and I love them that you can outsource to. But when I look at what you're trying to do and you're trying to build and grow, if you outsource, you can't train them and then hire them or promote them right into this next role. All the companies that I've worked with, where we all basically started with one, what we did is we used them, the BDRs, to train them, and they became not only our sales reps. A lot of them are running the companies that I was at and that you're, maybe that you're a partner of. And that was all because we hired them as a BDR and trained them through the company. So a lot of things to think about there.
And I would say there's many different personas that would fill a good BDR seat. But if you're talking to somebody that has a background as an athlete, really get into that conversation, because historically, Adam, I'm sure you can attest to this. Some of your best of the best were athletes, correct?
A little bit of everything. I used to lean that way a little bit, but they all of the sales reps really do come in different different personas. What I think you really want is, when I zoom out, what do I want? I want someone that's hungry about sales, that they have the desire to engage into the unknown when we're talking about the hunter rather than the farmer, and that, that they're resilient. Because let's face it, you guys know how many times probably people from the vendors I've worked with have called all of you, and all of you have resisted them at different times. I get it. It wasn't the right time. But think about it now when you have your salesperson. That salesperson is going to, engage in that same resistance, right? And so sales really is about finding success in a very small margin of deals. You might make 60 or 70 calls a day to qualify one person. And if you have a, 50% close rate, which we'll talk about in a little bit, there's a 50-50 chance they might even close. That's just them agreeing to take a look at your service, right? And so it's a role, a career field that you have to be very resilient in and not take it personally, because there's weeks, I'm sure all of you know, especially owner-led, when you just get no. And if you're making 60 or 70 calls a day, multiply that by 5 business days. I've tried to engage with 300 people. There might be weeks when you get no for the entire week. And you have to have that belief that I'm going to come back next week and get a lot more yeses. So I'm looking for that resiliency and that hunger to be and pursue sales.
You brought up something interesting, and it ties into something that Ron had brought up here in the chat. So you were saying that if you're, concerned about saving some money, maybe you hire the BDR instead of, the direct salesperson. He was talking about the cost of customer acquisition. So when that cost is already really high, and then you've got to have all this time to convert the clients, so you're paying your engineers, and now you've also got to pay commission to the salesperson. What are maybe some other ways that an MSP can save some money in that process, or some workarounds? Because I can see where that would look very overwhelming, all of that.
Well, the challenge is when we talk about workarounds, right? We're either going to engage in investing in the type of activities that are going to build revenue. You absolutely have to know your financial model and know where your break evens is. Matter of fact, I'd like to table that a little bit because I'm going to show a sample plan.
With the commission plan. Yep.
Yeah, and I think that'll start to explain it as we can put in different numbers.
Okay.
And by the way, if you want a copy of the plan, if you hit us up, we'd be glad to send it to you. That plan is being used, I'm going to show, is being used in a lot of MSPs worldwide. It's a very simple plan. I know a lot of you have complex plans with looking at margin and a lot of different things. I think that helps create that paralysis by analysis. Salespeople want to know what their sales plan is, have a simple plan to go attack. And look, that's why you get into sales. You want to make money, right? And what you want to do is have that balance of the win so that the company wins. By the way, it's not the win-win, it's the triple win. The company wins, your client wins, and of course, the sales rep wins. The more you marry those three together, you will crush it. And I know that sounds easy and like, oh, easy for you to say. I promise you, almost every company with the exception of CA, I started with one. It always starts with one. And then from that, you build, okay? All right, so, yeah. So the other thing is, and this is, like I said, a whole nother breakout when we get into the data. Know your conversion percentages, because this is what's going to allow you to forecast and tell the future, which ties a little bit into that last question. I want to be able to create a machine, a revenue generating machine that starts from marketing and goes all the way through the different sales steps. And by the way, all the way to post-sales, when I have whatever you choose to call that role, customer success, you want to call it your, some of you use your field techs, your engineers to manage the customer afterwards, or, you have dedicated account managers. But you've got to know the math. And this allows you to tell the future. When you perfect this, I can tell you from my own experience, every time I get this dialed in somewhere, I'm going to be very candid. I get a little bored because what happens is it takes on a life of its own. And in a lot of ways, it doesn't need me. But it comes down to that hard part at the beginning in getting into the numbers and understanding the math. So for example, we talked about marketing. They're going to create a database. We're going to nurture the people in that database of prospects, the prospects that you want to win against. If they're not prospects you want to win, don't want to win, get them out of your database. Now we're going to nurture them. Now we're going to get them into our sales process, and we're going to start to make phone calls. How many phone calls does it take to create an opportunity? How many M2Ls do you need to create an opportunity? These are just numbers. You can count them. If you have a system of record and you have your established process, these are numbers. So for example, we know at Liongard that for about, I'm going to give you averages, for about every 50 outbound calls, we will create about 1.5 opportunities. And when we look down the road and we say, okay, now if we've created, what's our close rate from an opportunity to a closed won deal? And we know it's about 40%. Why can we keep that close percentage so high? Because we have the filters right. The deal should not, the opportunity should not move down the process unless it meets all those criteria. That basically is like, yes, this is somebody that could benefit from our services. Now, the challenge you have sometimes in salespeople is they'll stretch their filter a little bit because, maybe they've had a dry spell. And they're like, this really isn't a perfect candidate. Let me get it through. All right. And then a lot more times than not, it's not a fit. All right. So if you have all those things set, what happens is when you perfect these numbers, I promise you, you can predict the future and you know your forecast. Historically, I've been able to forecast within 5%. I'm not smart. It's not because I'm a sales guru. It's because I learned how to perfect and understand the numbers, and the numbers reside in your system of record. If you have a system of record and you're maintaining your data, you will be able to tell the future. And that will give you the security of understanding when is your earn back when I close a deal, because I got to pay everybody. Everybody's got to get paid. And I want to understand all those things so that I know that, hey, listen, I'm actually growing and going to make more money rather than lose more money. All right. And then the last thing I put in here, because data needs to be a part of your solution. And I know maybe you're not always used to hearing that from a salesperson, but if you're not data driven, you're probably not going to be able to build this sales machine that I'm referring to. So the key to winning in sales is certainly having the right data, effectively communicating your value proposition, and we'll talk about that a little bit, and having a strong sales process, which we've chatted a bit. All right, going to keep the ship moving.
Yes.
And let me know how we're doing on time, y'all.
We're at about 12:08 Eastern.
We're at
so,
okay.
Yep.
So I'm going to move it just a little bit higher. So moving forward, we definitely want to interview and hire. Make sure you're bringing on someone that's a cultural fit. If they don't align to your core values, I don't care how great a salesperson they are, I wouldn't bring them on. And I've been blessed to work with so many great salespeople. But at different companies, the culture is a little bit different. And not all of them, as much as I enjoyed working with them at other companies, wouldn't necessarily maybe be a fit at a different company. And it's important to understand that and align to those core values. We certainly want to make the offer. I want to get through this because I want to talk a little bit about the comp plan. We have two parts to an offer to a salesperson: the base salary and the back end variable, the on-target commissions, where we're going to create some targets. And I got to give you a hint. This is another one where I see the mistakes made with an MSP. They'll go very big base salary with a much smaller on target for the commissions. Based on the target, we're going to say how many deals we expect you to close. I prefer to try to have the on target about 50-50. So for example, a base salary might be 50,000, doesn't matter which currency. And then the back end on target might be 50,000. See how it's 50-50? The salary, I want you to be able to pay your bills, but I need you hungry and want you to earn the commissions, right?
Yep.
My base was 100,000 and 15,000 in commissions. I've seen this. You're mismatched. They've already got 85%, 90% of their on target earnings. And so, they might be a little complacent, so I want to keep them hungry, but I don't want them to be poor. I need them to be able to provide for the families and not worry about paying their, the bills, but I need them hungry to want to go target and close business, right? All right, then we talk about training and education. Another classic mistake: hire a salesperson, don't invest any time training and educating them on your tools and your services, probably going to fail. And then, of course, what this will lead to, if you do all these things, you will unleash the fury of sales. All right, let's talk about commission plan. So this is something I usually get a lot of follow-up on. Again, hit me up, block some time with me. You can always find me on LinkedIn if nothing else. And I have the name that's impossible not to miss. It is Slutskin, and you will not find, I think, any other Slutskins on LinkedIn, not even my brother. By the way, if your children watch Blue's Clues, my brother, Jeremy Slutskin, is the director of Blue's Clues. If you find that Slutskin, that's not me, that's my brother. All right. So when we talk a little bit about commission, I've come up with a basic one. I said, I'm making this assumption that the average recurring monthly revenue that you get from a deal is $3,000. Doesn't matter, again, on what currency, all right? This is for a fully managed customer, right? We want to target one net new customer a month. So what that means is, in this scenario, we would add, based on a full year, if the salesperson can close one net new customer a month, we would add 12 new customers for the year, and that aggregate billing would be $36,000. MRR. We multiply that by 12. We're going to get our annual, and we're going to be right around 400,000 that we've created in AR, annual recurring revenue. Now, I've built a lot of plans for a lot of your peers based on higher numbers. I've done them as high as creating $100,000 of MRR in a year by one sales rep. That would be the equivalent of creating 1.2 million in ARR. But in this case, we're going to say, let's close 3 deals a month, and that the commission plan pays the first month billing. So if you're looking to figure out your payback for that, so that would put them on target to make $36,000 in commission for the year, and they're going to create $36,000 in MRR or $432,000 in ARR. Now, the note I put there is, yes, you're going to create all that other kind of project work in addition to that. And we're going to show that on the slide in a very simple way. Now, this is a template that can definitely be played with a little bit, and I've helped different MSPs adapt it. So if we look at it in Q1, which is January, February, March, where quota is 9,000. Now, this field actually toggles. This is the field where I put in the actual amount sold, and then that would create this. Since it's a dollar for dollar, we're paying the $1 for every dollar they close in commission. The on target would be 9,000 in commission earned for the quarter. Let's hypothetically say we made the quota 18,000, right? Then we would reduce the actual payout to 50% of every dollar if we stay on target for paying out $36,000 for the year, right? So if we double the quota to 18,000, but the commission earned on target is going to be 36,000, then we're only going to pay 50 cents on every dollar sold. And these are the ways that we can play with it. But I wanted to create a simple one that people are using and that they're sometimes using for their BDRs. This is a good BDR one because it is a bit lower in the on target by USD standards than you would pay a rep. All right. The full on hunter that's going out there to close the deal, you know, doing all the demos, doing sales negotiation, and doing the site visits if that's, you know, your model and or when it's appropriate. But this is very simple. If we plugged in this model and they only sold in Q1 $4,500, their earnout would only be $4,500 because it's dollar for dollar in this example. And when you look at it, what I like to include is bonuses because I want them to overachieve. So let's say that in this one in Q1, they sold, 10,000, right? I think that would put them in 1,019, about 111%. That would put them into this additional little bonus they could earn. See, sales, remember I told you some of the traits of a successful salesperson at the beginning. It's that creativity. That creativity, they love this, guys. When you put these kind of things in, what happens is look at the tiers, how it goes, like 10% tiers. It's not like from 100% to 140% to 180%, because as you get close to each, tier, let's say you're at 108%, you start going, man, if I could just find a little bit more, I could get in the second tier. Then all of a sudden they dig a little bit and they get close to the higher end of second tier and they go, wow, what if I kept going? I could get in this tier. This is real. And I want John to comment on this real quick, because this is a plan that John has lived in, being a part of my teams. John, any comments on, what you think about the simplicity of the plan or what it meant for you?
I mean, you got to make plans simple for salespeople to understand. I think there's a common mistake that is way too overly complicated. So this is a great approach. And I'll attest to the fact of what you just framed up. You're in that quarterly bonus. You're starting to hit a certain percentage. You based on the work and the pipeline you put together, all of a sudden you're in this other tier, and then a few other things trickle in, and then you're approaching another tier. It really does create that momentum. So absolutely recommend this approach. I've seen it work time and time again.
And I know we're running a little bit, probably getting close to the end. Anybody that would like a copy of this or would like to block some time to spend a little time, or if you have a couple friends and you want to do it in a group, let me know. I love helping in any way I can and showing you different ways to modify this, right? It's a good base plan that allows for some slight modifications to match each one of yours objectives. But I would tell you, it's a simple plan. It works, and it will provide you the guidance or the incentive for a sales rep to try to hit these numbers. And then look, go ahead.
So someone was asking about ROI with your first salesperson, at what point you should expect to see that. So like, how do you give them an entire quarter to kind of start getting ramped up before you start this?
Great question. So building a pipeline is one of the most important things that a salesperson is going to do. And I'll give you an example. In the world that I'm in, I will generally, depending on the complexity of the product, the different vendors that I've worked with or for, either as an advisor or as their direct employee, is sometimes it's 30 to 90 days. It shouldn't be longer than that. At the very latest, depending on if you have a very unique prospect that you're targeting, let's say you're targeting shipbuilders, right? Probably not a lot of them out there. And so it's going to take a little bit longer to build that pipeline because there's less of them to call and bigger deals. And so it might take closer to that 90 days ramp. But I like to say, if you're not starting to see that return on investment by at least the 91st day, okay, then you're going to have to review. Do you have the right person? Do we have the right value proposition? Do we have the right database? And we're always trying to evaluate all those things. I do it every single day with my leadership teams. It doesn't matter what size we are. When I'm the army of one and it's me, or when I have managers, it's that same methodical cadence that I'm trying to communicate to you guys. You've got to have it. You've always got to be asking why and seeking that out. By the way, as you perfect all those numbers I told you about in your sales process, and you actually start to get bored because it goes on autopilot. It really does, but until you get there, you got to ask all the right questions and you got to ask the why. Why isn't it happening? But now in some cases, what you want to do is, if you're not seeing a deal, let's say in a lot of cases, you might see some deals start popping within 30 days, but here's what you want to focus on, right? Because it's a journey. At the end of 30 days, here's what I want from a new salesperson. And I'm putting on my MSP hat for all the people I've worked with in your world. Okay, what do I want to see? One, they know how to turn on their computer. They've made, acquaintances with everybody in the company because that's so important. They know how to navigate the company. They've had the exposure to your value proposition. So they represent your company very well, and that they're saying the right things, and that they started to make contact and make phone calls. And at the very least, we're starting to see some early creation of opportunities. Now let's look at month 2. If we're not seeing any deals yet in the first 30 days, which you probably won't, sometimes, but not mostly. In month 2, you should start to see something happen, but we're really looking at the maturity of that pipeline. They've got the value proposition down. How do you know it? Because you're going to spend time with them. You're not going to quiz them like you're going to threaten them if they don't know it. You're educating, you're teaching them, and you're reviewing it, and you're role playing it, right? And then from that, as we get into that third month, we should start to see deals certainly closing. And then that's when we're going to start to get into that nice cadence. And then that's why I like to have these bonuses, because I want to reward them for overachieving in a quarter. Very important that we understand. It'd be great if we could guarantee you're going to close one deal a month. I don't see that in any company I've ever worked with in 20-something years. And as a rep myself, or as a sales leader for 17 or 18 years. And so what we want to do is, I've always taken that quarterly approach, which is why I back it up with quarterly bonuses, because I really want you to succeed in the quarter. Knowing that you're going to build your pipeline, and then you're going to exit your pipeline in every quarter. And then there's a little bit of rebuilding that happens in the next subsequent quarter, and then so on. And then you start to see that turnover.
So Adam, when do you classify a sale as like done? Is it when the quote's accepted? Is it when the contract is signed? Or is it when the new client has been like onboarded and they've paid their first month?
Yeah. So as far as for executing on commissions, the way I like to do it is because we like to keep it simple. We will pay commissions when the deal is signed, the agreement is signed. Now, we know that there's follow-on process, right? We have to onboard them and everything else. What happens is that the other side of sales, which it's just part of the business. As a salesperson, we expect it. If that new client doesn't turn into a paying client, then we get charged back on those commissions. So, for example, you paid me $3,000. I just closed. It's the end of March, and I closed a deal, and for $3,000 monthly recurring revenue. I'm done. I hand it off onto onboarding, and then they decide for whatever reason they're not going to be a paying client, right? Something happened, or there's a missing ingredient. They think that we didn't communicate, or I didn't communicate to them. Then that commission, if it was paid out and then that client canceled, I would have to pay that money back. Now, here's the other little rule with this. There's just only so much time, so I can only give you so much. So if you have any questions,
9 minutes.
Yes. So here's what happens. Generally, you're going to look at a break even when you create your sales plan, right? The agreement with your salesperson or people is if a paying client doesn't make it past 6 months, I get charged back 100% on the commission paid. If they make it past 6 months, but not to a full year, and they cancel before the first full year, then I have to pay 50% back. If they make it past that first full year, and then they cancel any point after that, there's no charge back. In other words, I get to keep all the commission I've earned. The reason you do that is, remember I keep talking about salesperson persona. It's that instant gratification. It's that creativity. We want to keep that hunger going. And where I see a lot of this fail is where people, and even on the vendor side, they get too cute and they're like, we're not going to pay you for like some distant point in the future. You're not understanding the hunter persona. You're not giving them the satisfaction of the kill. And so you're really basically you're going to wind up losing them. I see it all the time on vendors that try this. Eventually they leave. They don't stick around very long.
Well,
Sometimes
and I would think
you can leave as soon as the first month.
it would probably cause some animosity within your team internally as well, because then sales is going to constantly be on account managers or engineers to make sure everything's onboarded, and it can create some friction there too. So I think
if we've hired the right person, we've aligned the core values, we've trained them, right? We have our methodical cadence. We have the right person. If you're worried about not trusting your salesperson, there's probably other things that you need to consider. But no different than when you hire an engineer or hire any other role in your company. When we hire them, we should believe in them and we need to feel that we can trust them. If not, keep looking for the right person. You may not have the right person. But once we do, look, in the world I'm in, we always do chargebacks. John and I both have had chargebacks. Do we hate it? Of course we do. Do we understand it as part of the business that we're in? Absolutely, And I wish I could save every single client or partner that I've assigned, but it's not possible. Nobody does it. Nobody bats, 1,000, You're going to have exits. And when they do, and they don't meet the criteria that I laid out, there will be a chargeback. But I'm just motivated to keep going and winning more and more clients, knowing that not every one of them will stick. Now, our exit rates are higher than what I've seen in the MSP side. On the MSP side, I've worked with so many MSPs, they've had their clients sometimes for 20 years. Maybe some of you are longer. Put that in the chat. If you have a client longer than 20 years, I'd love to see it. But, and that's kind of why I think keeping it simple works. Any other questions that came up on this plan, Cynthia, or I'm going to move on?
Yeah, I think go ahead and move on. I think
Okay.
you addressed one of the questions that came up. I'm clarifying it though.
All right. So we talked about, what to measure. These are the activities that salespeople live in. We have calls, outbound calls. We talked about this, we have BDRs maybe that are going to do heavy outbound calling. But remember, even if you don't have one of them and you just hired a sales reps, that's what we do. We make phone calls. We call on prospects. We demo them. Understand how many demos you're doing. Understand how many opportunities you're creating from those demos. How many appointments do we have? It could be on person or virtual. For inside people, how much time are we engaged on the phone? In other words, if I'm making 70 outbound calls a day and I'm on the phone 15 minutes, I'm not staying engaged. Now, where can you get these metrics? A lot of them are available to whatever phone provider that you're using. So that's how we do it. Let's say you don't have that through whatever phone system you're using. Guess what you have? A system of record. So for example, when I was at ConnectWise, I used ConnectWise to manage upwards of 300 people worldwide. So when people would ask if it was scalable, yes, PSAs are scalable. I used it to manage 300 people, and we would have our different fields. For those of you that use it, it's really similar to what I've seen with Autotask and Kaseya and everybody. We're ultimately going to have fields, and we're going to have dispositions. We can say that we made a phone call, we left a voicemail, we did a demo, and I can count all of these through my system of record if I can't get some of this through my phone system, right? And if you look at it, look at these things, and what are you starting to see? Remember when we talked about understanding your conversion rates? Are you starting to see it? You know, how many outbound calls does it take me to get a demo? And how many times does it take to go from that demo to create an opportunity? You know, these are the things you want to think about. Keep going down. What is my conversion rate for closing? What is my average deal size? A lot of people have specific targets, the MSPs that I've worked with, on how much MRR they want to target for a client. I've seen some that'll take anybody. We don't care. You know, we'll do anybody that's even $1,000 in MRR up to anywhere. I see people that only target 5 to 10,000 in MRR. But you know, you want to know your average deal size, and if you're staying on target for that with what we're looking to close. Of course, revenue close. Yes, we care about that. And then that other thing that ties into, we talked about, when is our break even? When should you be concerned? Sales cycle length, right? Know how long it takes to close something for your specific target market, because some MSPs it'll be shorter, others it'll be longer. You know, accounting firms might take longer to close law firms. Doctors' offices might be shorter, you know, and all of those different things. And then, of course, if you're targeting a certain size, right? So those are all the things that you want to understand and what to measure. All right, coaching and know when to call it. Coach for success. Remember what I talked about. Don't be an absentee leader. I talked about the person in the corner. The owner never engaged with that person, had no idea what they were doing. Classic absentee leader. By the way, when I was leaving, service, what's that?
Got 2 minutes.
Okay. The service delivery manager came over and said, could you please help that sales rep? And we did. And we worked out a plan, and we were actually able to get the owner engaged. By the way, jump on calls, go to appointments. Hey, if you don't touch it, you don't know it. I still do it. I love getting on calls and being engaged because I want to understand what new challenges may be going on, with our prospects and how to help the team. And you got to know when to call it. So going back to that person that asked, when should you see it? Remember I said 90 days, if you're not seeing anything and you're not even seeing the opportunities created, generally that's when we're going to put a little bit more of a magnifying glass, on and watch that next 3 months. And if you're not seeing things change, you got to know when to call it. And that's when it's like you may have the wrong person. You more than likely do. All right.
All right. And now we're back to my part. So listen, Liongard can definitely help you with making your onboarding costs lower. And we can even help a bit with sales assessments. The main reason we're here, though, one of our core values is to teach and lead. And with all of our combined expertise, we have a lot to teach. So Adam, if you don't mind, maybe going back to that other slide. If you are interested to hear what Liongard might be able to do for you, please go to insights.liongard.com/TTG. There is special pricing for attendees, and we can get you a demo and you can see how Liongard can help your business be more profitable. And big thank you to the network group and to Adam and John for lending their time today. And yeah, I think that's about it. Bye, and happy St. Patrick's Day if that's a thing you do.
Hit me up on LinkedIn if you want to talk more about any of this. Always glad to help.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thanks, everybody.